Good evening, WFC faithful. My name is Dustin McGowan, and I would like to welcome you to a very special presentation brought to you by Wrestling for a Cause. Over the last few months, we have seen an unusual story play out as the Order of Thorns has been systematically attacked by assailants that until recently were unknown. It wasn't until July 17th at the Freedom Rings Rumble event in Wagner that the Order of Thorns confronted WFC founder Tim Rockwell, whom they believed to be responsible for the attacks. It was during this confrontation that we all learned, while Tim was the one who made the call that led to the assaults, they were carried out by Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow. Following this revelation, the Order of Thorns issued a challenge to the sideshow for a match unlike anything WFC has seen before, something called the Ritual of the Damned. Tonight, we will finally see this saga reach its conclusion, as the match will begin a short time from now. But first, for those that need a refresher, let's take a look at the parties involved and recap how we reached this moment in WFC history. First up, let's learn a little bit more about the history of Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow. The story of Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow goes all the way back to 2014 and Durden's initial debut in WFC as an unnamed goon under the banner of the Caballero Cartel. Eventually, Durden and his partner Riker would leave the cartel and begin competing as the Rising, chasing the WFC Tag Team Championships. After multiple failed attempts, and with the WFC faithful favoring Riker, the tag team would implode in the first round of the 2016 Ryder Herring Memorial Cup tournament, when Riker would defeat Durden to move on in the tournament.
Who's your daddy? 1, 2, 3! The winner of your contest, advancing in the semifinals of the 2016 Ryder Cup Memorial, Riker! Y'all make some noise for Riker, baby!
Following this loss, Durden disappeared for months, leading to Riker seeking any information he could find on his missing former partner.
If take him down in a match, what can you update with us on that?
I don't know anything. I know WFC put out some flyers. If anyone sees them, they can contact Find Abel at wfccharity.com.
Eventually, Durden would return with a group of followers calling themselves the Pandemonium Sideshow. The appearance of this group led to a prolonged feud with Riker that reached its violent conclusion in a street fight that took place in May 2017. Though Durden put up a good fight, Riker would come out victorious in the match and move on to his pursuit of the WFC Hometown Heroes Championship. Durden and his sideshow, however, were only interested in causing chaos and destruction wherever they went. There were many that attempted to halt the group's campaign of mayhem. Paul Puerto Rico's Space Age team would cross paths with the sideshow on numerous occasions, resulting in Aeronaut and Gemini being placed on the injured list when the sideshow violently broke their hands in subsequent matchups. Former WFC Tag Team Champions, the BFFs, had multiple encounters with the sideshow as well, which resulted in a Halloween clash that left the BFFs unconscious and beaten on the floor at ringside. It was in May 2019 that the Twisted Sideshow took a more sinister turn when their hidden mentor, Mr. Wise, finally made his presence known. The troupe began to exhibit even darker tendencies than before, and their sights were set firmly on the leadership of WFC, founder Tim Rockwell and director of wrestling operations Stryker. It would be in June 2019 at the Ryder Herring Memorial Cup tournament that the Sideshow would attack and abduct Stryker. While they held Stryker, the Sideshow also began taunting Tim Rockwell with a series of videos painting him as someone who claimed to be a villain while pretending to be a hero in order to hide the fact that he was, in their words, a zero-sum and inconsequential. Rockwell would then be cornered by the Sideshow and a challenge would be issued. Stryker was returned and, along with Dexter Hardaway and X-Cow, he and Rockwell would face the Sideshow with the very soul of WFC at stake.
The Mr. Durden Pandemonium Sideshow.
And the attempt there by Rockwell and Durden.
Oh, but wait a minute.
X-Cow making his way to the top here. What's he got in mind?
Trying to just gain balance here.
He's trying to maintain his... Shooting star! Shooting star press off the top. Was taken out. And Rockwell with eyes in the back of his head as he goes for the grapevine DDT.
And he got it. And that
Rockwell
can do
rolls
it.
it up.
2.
Fortunately for WFC, Rockwell and company won the match. Ultimately, for Mr. Durden and his freaks, however, this would be their undoing, and the Sideshow would find themselves scattered to the 4 winds in the aftermath of their loss. The Sideshow's 2 big brawlers, Draven and Sinister Skunk Ape, would disappear from WFC altogether. Samedi would continue making sporadic appearances, though he seemed unfocused. Durden would abandon his Sideshow to join the Caballero Cartel alongside Riker, reforming the Rising before also disappearing during the pandemic. Now that we've taken a look at the Sideshow, let's find out some more about the Order of Thorns. The first mention of the Order of Thorns actually goes back to the time of Mr. Durden's Pandemonium Sideshow, and in hindsight, the connection between these two groups is startling. In the months leading to the Sideshow's confrontation with Tim Rockwell and Team WFC, the WFC magazine published a series of articles on the Sideshow that focused on an unusual leather-bound journal that was somehow connected to the group. It was in this aged journal that we learned that the Sideshow was just the latest incarnation of a cult that originated in the tents of a traveling circus from the days of horse-drawn wagons. The name of this cult? The Eldritch Order of Thorns. In the months that followed the Sideshow's defeat, the dark shadow that seemed to loom over WFC and their presence slowly disappeared. It wasn't until July 2020 that the first hints of that shadow began to re-emerge. It was at this time a tag team emerged consisting of Samedi and Shadow Gemini. Led by the imposing Dr. Nightshade, the Order of Thorns debuted in a match that saw them make quick work of the Machos. In the months that followed their debut, the Order of Thorns would come into conflict with Canadian Red Devil and GoldenEye. It was during this time that Dr. Nightshade told CRD that he should not have involved himself in the Order's business, revealing the masks of the Machos and issuing the warning that CRD didn't want to end up like the Order's last opponents. Even now, we have no idea what happened to the blue and gold-clad luchadores. Despite their warning, CRD and GoldenEye continued to clash with the Order of Thorns until they finally managed to defeat them in a tag team match. Despite their victory, a miscommunication during the match resulted in CRD walking away from GoldenEye, who was confronted by the Order, before being assaulted and abducted. A video was released showing a restrained GoldenEye being forced to watch some type of video, and weeks later the Order of Thorns would appear with a new member bearing a disturbing similarity to the Slender Man of urban legend and answering to the name Umbra. As 2021 dawned, the Order of Thorns found themselves facing the impressive challenge of the monster known as Blade. Samedi and Gemini faced Blade in a handicap match with Dr. Nightshade and Umbra watching from ringside. And though the pair kept the big man on his toes, Blade just kept coming until he found himself outside the ring and face to face with Dr. Nightshade. After a few tense moments and an exchange of words, the two men shook hands and Blade became the newest weapon in the Order's arsenal. the Order has continued to grow, adding 2 young men to their number, who we have learned are called the War Dogs. Now numbering at 7 members, the Order of Thorns has begun to resemble an army of shadows, and where there is a gathered army, conflict and strife are sure to follow. So, we've learned about Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow, we've learned about the Order of Thorns, and we've learned about the alarming connection between the 2 groups. Before we reach the end of this journey and the confrontation of these 2 dark forces, we are left with one question. How did we get here? This conflict arose because of a favor. Heading into November 2020, Tim Rockwell and his new roster of villains were slated to take on a team captained by 2020 Ryder Cup winner Dmitry Alexandrov. There was just one problem. This was going to be a 10-man tag team match, and the villains were a man short. Rockwell had already turned to Caballero Cartel, but Rockwell's failure to keep Sam Stackhouse from defeating Royal for the WFC Championship the month prior left the Cartel unwilling to lend any assistance. This left the WFC founder with only one choice. Venturing into the Barrens, home of the Order of Thorns, Rockwell approached Dr. Nightshade and asked if one of his men would team with the villains. Nightshade stated he would provide the villains with a 5th man, but he would not reveal who that man would be until the match, and Rockwell would owe the Order of Thorns a favor. Rockwell quickly agreed, and later that month, Samedi teamed with the villains to face Alexandrov and his team. The villains would be unsuccessful in their match with Rockwell, being pinned by KJ Everly, and, to add insult to injury, Alexandrov would cash in the Ryder Cup trophy at that moment and pin Rockwell again, this time taking away his Hometown Heroes Championship. Rockwell would regain the title for a short period of time, but ultimately, Alexandrov would get the last laugh, reclaiming the Hometown Heroes Championship in March 2021. With his championship gone and the heroes of WFC slowly beginning to stand out and gain ground, Rockwell began an attempt to fortify his position. He started this by burying the hatchet with Alex Royal and the Cartel. However, in the back of his head, he knew he still owed the Order of Thorns a favor, and he no longer wanted anything to do with it. Rockwell voiced his intentions of getting out of the deal to his villains. However, any plans he had were quickly thrown into disarray when Dr. Nightshade appeared and confronted Rockwell, telling him in no uncertain terms that there was no getting out of their deal, and any attempt by Rockwell to back out of it would have severe consequences. Once Dr. Nightshade was gone, Rockwell composed himself and made a phone call. In the weeks that followed, the members of the Order of Thorns, including Dr. Nightshade, would be systematically attacked. It wasn't until they returned and confronted Rockwell, however, that we would learn that Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow had returned, and they wanted their position back as the Resident Evil of WFC. It was then that a challenge was issued. As the clock ticks down to the start of this match, we have many questions about how something called the Ritual of the Damned is going to work. What we know for sure is that there are no referees. There are no pinfalls, no submissions, no disqualifications. Anything goes in this match. We also know that by the time this match is ended, there will only be one group left standing. Whether the Pandemonium sideshow will be able to reclaim their position, or the Order of Thorns will further establish their dominance, remains to be seen. Either way, it should make for something unique, entertaining, and possibly nightmarish, considering the ramifications for WFC once one team vanquishes the other. It is now time for the Ritual of the Damned. Hold on to your seats. I'm Dustin McGowan.
Finally. It's about time you got here. I was beginning to wonder if you and your little gang of pretenders were ever going to show up.
You know, that's real funny coming from you, considering that you guys only came out of hiding to act as lapdogs for Tim Rockwell.
Oh, Rockwell was just a means to an end. Once we're done with you, we're taking him and everyone else out.
Oh, yes. Yes, you have plans for Rockwell and his friends. Because your last plans for Rockwell and his friends worked out so well.
Oh, you got jokes. You got jokes. Well, I'm about ready to get this game started. I brought this for you. So please, after you. I see you're starting with your biggest, baddest weapon, huh? Well, you may have a blade, but I've got a cannon.
Drive it in! Go! 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 Let go! Let go! 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 Let go! Let go! Let go!
Let's move them outside, shall we?
Let go! Let go! Go! Let go! Come on! Come on! Go! Let go! Let go! 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 And go! Yes! Go! And go! And go! And go!
I'm a little disappointed your blade broke easier than I expected it to.
Blade still has a few tricks up his sleeve. And speaking of tricks, here's one that I think you're going to be very familiar with.
Ah, yes, the betrayer. Well, I've got something just for him.
Hey there, buddy. You used to be one of us. You used to be on our side. This is gonna hurt me a lot more than it's gonna hurt you, buddy. Come on. Let's do this. Come on, brother.
Well, I think Durden has this well in hand. Let's see what you think of this.
The Jackal. We're ready for your games. Let's see how you feel about Gemini, but with a little added twinkle to make this more interesting.
Oh, an enhanced Gemini? Oh, I thought these tricks were beneath you, Shade. Oh, now there's two of them. Haha, Gemini. Ooh. Two Gemini. Got it just as easily as one. Ah, yes, I've been looking forward to this. You're Slender Man. I'm anxious to see how he handles my skunking.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. I really had hoped to see more from your creepypasta soldier.
You shouldn't be so quick to count him out.
Just admit it, Nightshade. Your tricks are no match for us. You're in over your head. Just give up. Just roll over. And die. And we'll carry on.
That's your problem, Wise. You make it too easy. The board was always in our favor.
Oh, Smitty, I've always loved your masks. Oh, but now I want to cut your face off and make one for my own.
Pandemonium sideshow. You have failed the ritual. You will now be judged, stripped of your gifts, and cast into the void to enjoy the endless agonies prepared for you. All of the torment and all of the pain. Sweet, glorious pain.
No! The sideshow doesn't end this way. No, we are the Resident Evil. We are the Autumn people. It's our time, not yours. This is ours!
Light it up.
Repeating our top story, the Barrens is in flames tonight following a conflict between the Order of Thorns and Mr. Durden's Pandemonium sideshow. Fire crews are still working to extinguish the blaze that has claimed multiple local businesses and a large portion of the Barrens boardwalk. At this time, we have yet to receive a comment from the mayor's office.